What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to another edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we continue to talk about what we were hearing from OTAs. We'll hear from both Tanner Engstrand, the offensive coordinator, and Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator. But I want to remind you guys, last week I talked about how the Jets were about to get some cap space flexibility, right? After June 1st, where the cuts of Aaron Rodgers and CJ Mosley would create some cap relief that could be spread across, and how they were going to earn, in essence, another $22 million under the cap and be able to potentially use that money to go ahead and lock up our dual rookies of the year from a couple of years ago, right? Remember, we had Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner be the rookies of the year a couple of years ago from the Jets. And I believe there is reason to believe that both of them could have extensions coming on the near-term horizon, okay? I talked about how the Jets get some cap relief. This could be spun forward for Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. You've heard Darren Muji. You've heard Aaron Glenn both talk about how we will look at this as the time warrants. You've heard Aaron Glenn talk about how men that represent the culture, what they want in the green and white, men who were drafted here, who want to be pillars of this organization, that they want to keep them there. We talked about this with Jamie and Sherwood, who they re-signed early in free agency, and the same could be coming for Sauce and Garrett Wilson. In fact, there are reports that the talks have picked up and that offers may have already been made to the camp of Garrett Wilson and to Sauce Gardner. And here's the thing. I believe you need to sign both of these men in the offseason because, as Fat Joe used to say, you know, I'm from the Bronx. Fat Joe, a rapper from the Bronx, used to always say, yesterday's price is not today's price. And I believe that both the wide receiver and the cornerback markets are only going to continue to go up and up and up and get more expensive. Again, Garrett Wilson, 100 plus catches, 1,100 plus yards, right? A ton of touchdowns last year. I think he was fourth or fifth. We've talked about it on Jets Latest before, in targets in the NFL. And that was with Devontae Adams on the other side. He's going to be even more of an alpha right now. We also talk about how he doesn't drop the ball, his adjusted catch rate being incredible. I've made the comparisons, as we usually do with Detroit, to Amon-Ra St. Brown and how he is going to, in my opinion, crack that upper echelon of wide receivers after his performance this year being reunited with his college teammate, Justin Fields. We've seen kind of the deals that Jamar Chase has gotten, that T. Higgins, even as a wide receiver too, has gotten, that CeeDee Lamb has gotten, right? So you want to do it now before he even breaks out more and winds up costing the Jets even more. Sign that man. And the same can be said for Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner is known as one of the best cover cornerbacks in the NFL, a two-time All-Pro in just 3 years of being on the team so far. Sign him, because you've also seen the secondary market go up. You see what J.C. Horn got on the open market. Darryl Stingley with the Houston Texans also got the bag. So I agree that they need to make this move right now and lock up pillars of the Jets organization for years to come in Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. And speaking of Sauce Gardner, okay, we had new defensive coordinator Steve Wilks at the microphone, okay, during OTAs last week, and he talked not only about Aaron Glenn, his leadership style, but also about the defense that he wants to build, that he wants to bring, and what he wants to see in his style of defense. Check this out from Wilks. First of all, about AG. Leadership-wise, AG is phenomenal, man. He has really set the foundation and is really trying to change the culture within the building. And it's the building. It's not just the football aspect, and you can see that thus far. These players are really buying in, and the level of commitment and consistency we want is there. It's not really about our playbook, but our play style, and the key is to make sure we cater to our players. And I want to make this clear as well. You know, part of the reason I say for Sauce and Garrett Wilson, and you talk about the players buying in, even the coordinators are saying it, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner were there at OTAs, at voluntary workouts, being part of the culture, even while they were looking for extensions. I think that is very important. And then you also hear Wilkes talking about it's our play style and that he wants to cater to our players. I have said this a ton of times here on Jets Latest. Aaron Glenn with Detroit, they played almost 61% man coverage. That was the highest rate in the NFL. And Sauce is known as one of the better, cover man corners in the NFL. I've also talked about how the Jets want to emphasize an increase in turnovers, right? And look at what Wilkes brings to the table. In 2015 with Carolina, his 24 interceptions from that defense led the NFL. In 2022 with Carolina, 17 interceptions, top 5 in the NFL. 2023 with the Niners, 22 picks, led the NFL. You could also see there, he's got experience bringing the heat on the quarterback. His defenses have been in the top 5 in terms of sacks. His defenses have been in the top 5 in terms of points per game allowed. This is a veteran defensive coordinator. He also talked about his experience, and that can really help a first-year head coach in Aaron Glenn as well. So I think Wilkes and how they are going to use this defense, I think it fits. And when he says it's about the players, that's part of why I have been saying on this defense that Aaron Glenn is looking for a type of cornerback. There is an intentionality here, right? Sauce, a tall, long-armed, lanky press man cover. What is Brandon Stevens? A 6'3" press man, lanky cover. What did they go ahead and do? Draft A.Z. Thomas in the 3rd round. A press man cover that is over 6'1", lanky with long arms. They are intentional, trying to build a scheme and a defensive playbook that will suit their players. And Wilkes has experience in taking the ball over. That's part of why they got Cisco as a ball-hawking safety. Drafted Malachi Moore as a ball-hawking safety. There is a vision here to be sure. And remember, over at Detroit, they played man coverage and they blitzed. And you're going to have pressure coming from Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. So again, it all fits, and there is a reason I think you're going to need to pay Sauce Gardner now before the price goes up, especially in this cornerback market. But Wilkes was not the only coordinator that was talking. Tanner Engstrand is the new offensive coordinator for the Green and White. And remember, he was in Detroit recently with Aaron Glenn, has been credited with a lot of the creativity that had happened in that Detroit offense, is known for developing tight ends. So that's great news for our 2nd round draft pick, Mason Taylor. It was Tanner Engstrand who gets a lot of credit for developing guys like Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, who were tight ends in Detroit. But he was asked, what's the difference between working with Jared Goff in his second act, who is more known as a pocket passer, to the idea of having Justin Fields, who I have been building here on Jets Latest as one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL. Listen to what Tanner Engstrand had to say about that. He goes, I think it just opens up more. It adds another layer to what we can do where we're going on offense. Justin is a talented individual. Everybody talks about the running, but the guy's got an arm too. Mentally, he's been absolutely phenomenal so far. There's just a lot of things you can do with that type of player to stress the defense. Going through his career, he's continued to stack experience. You see some of the things that are starting to develop in his game, and we can do some things with that, and we're excited to get going with him. And I talked about Ben Johnson gets a lot of the credit for that Detroit offense. He parlayed that into a head coaching job with the Chicago Bears. But Tanner Engstrand got a lot of credit there for some of the creativity, as I've mentioned. And remember, that Detroit offense over the last couple of years was one of the top 5 in the NFL in terms of yards per game, even passing yards per game. As you can see there, top 3 in the NFL. 5th in points per game in the NFL. And I also think it's important, the red zone touchdown percentage, 6th in the NFL. The 3rd down conversion rate, 7th in the NFL. Remember I talked about in a previous episode of Jets Latest, the idea that Justin Fields is good when targeting the tight end. That works in 3rd down and the red zone. Remember how I say we're focusing on guys that have a very low drop rate, whether it's Garrett Wilson, whether it's Mason Taylor, or even Josh Reynolds, who I actually think is going to be starting opposite Garrett Wilson, what that can do for Justin Fields. So Tanner Engstrand has confidence in Justin Fields. This whole Jet organization has confidence in Justin Fields. And after OTAs, there have been more and more people that are starting to think that Fields can, in fact, have a a breakout season here with the Jets, and it doesn't hurt that his college teammate Garrett Wilson will be the alpha on the outside, and he may be happy not only because he has Fields, but because he has gotten the bag. Keep an eye out because extensions for Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner may be on the horizon. That'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Please go ahead, like these videos, subscribe to the Jets Latest channel, and tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. It's an exciting time here for the green and white as we march on through OTAs and into training camp and what should be a very fun season with the beginning of the Glenn and Moji and Justin Fields era. But if you want more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, remember, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM Radio, channel 87, where we focus on fantasy football upcoming with drafts. You got fantasy baseball right now as the boys of summer take center stage. But we do more than just that. We talk NBA, NHL. We talk PGA golf, for goodness sakes, because FTN is a great website with a lot of tools, a lot of data to give you the winning edge, become a better sports bettor and a better fantasy player. So check me out over on SiriusXM as well. But I love to engage with you in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter or X at Spittin' Speeds. But if you want the green and white, you stay right here because Jets Latest is back each and every day with more insights, more comments, and more analysis on what is going on with the Jets, Jets. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We'll see you tomorrow. We out of here for now. Peace.